What's going on, everybody? It's Mike. I've got Lauren Urban with me today. She is our COO at Youtalk. What's up, Lauren?
What's up? I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm always doing well, especially today. It's Friday, so always feeling
Yeah, can't beat that.
Can't beat that. Today, we want to talk to you guys a little bit about the sales to client services handoff or onboarding or whatever you call that process. And, to just preface this a little bit, this was something that I had talked to in the last episode. I talked to Chris Alexis, our HubSpot rep, and he was telling me about some good things that he had seen with other companies and how they do that smoothly. And it resonated with me. I was like, we do a lot of those same things too. So we want to give you guys a little bit of a snapshot into what we do. And then we want to talk to you a little bit about how you might be able to apply that to your own business. So a little bit more context, and then I'll hand it over to Lauren. I don't mean to just narrate the whole thing as I bring you on as a guest. But Lauren oversees our client services here as one of the many things she does. And then I oversee the marketing, obviously. And then both of us have a little bit of a hand in the sales side. So we kind of see all three of those, and then we tie them all together. So I don't know if you want to launch into a little bit about what we do, Lauren, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the hardest parts of bringing in a new account is transitioning them from the sales rep that they've been working with for the last however many weeks, months, kind of grooming and massaging that original proposal. And then ultimately, once that contract is signed, getting them over to their project manager and making them feel comfortable with this new person that they've never met before. So one of the things that we start with as soon as a contract is signed is an internal kickoff meeting. And where I think that really brings a lot of value is, number one, it really allows the sales rep to be able to dump all of the knowledge that they have about the client over to our new project manager, so that we're not asking clients for repeat information. That's super infuriating for clients to have to deal with. And then also in that internal meeting, we have a representative of every department that's going to be involved in that contract. So we really dive deep into the contract, make sure we all have a really good understanding. And that meeting really just kind of sets the tone for the entire project after that. That's where we kind of work out all the kinks internally and make sure that everything we do client facing is just super smooth and super organized. After that internal meeting, then that's when we officially introduce the PM to the client. Again, making sure that the PM has a full understanding of the contract, of the client, of their goals, anything that they've kind of communicated to that sales rep previously. Mm-hmm. And that really helps with our kickoff meetings with the client. In those meetings, we're gathering, boring stuff like website credentials and Google Analytics access and whatever it might be. And we don't also want to then pile on a million questions about how their company operates and things like that on top of that. So that's how we kind of streamline that initial handoff to make that as easy as possible on our clients.
Yeah, and another thing that we do in that initial meeting is we bring in the sales rep, because obviously they're the most knowledgeable. We bring in the project manager, who's going to be taking everything over, and then the two of them kind of semi-lead the meeting together with the directors of the departments that will be working on that account. And so from there, all the information is disseminated, and then the directors take that to their teams. They then talk to their teams about it. If there are some specific things that would arise with the, let's say SEO, for example, let's say the client has 14 locations and we need access to all their Google My Business pages, that's something that is usually brought up in that meeting. We work out a plan as to how we're going to get that, so that when we talk to the client, it's a little bit smoother too. But one thing that I think we do really well, and I really want to touch on this because I think it's exciting, is when the sales guys introduce the project manager on the call, we usually don't have the project managers introduce themselves, because, you introduce yourself, you're like, hi, I'm Mike, what's going on? It's everything I do at the beginning of the videos. I sound like a joke. But when you introduce other people, you have the opportunity to talk about them a little bit. And because they already trust you, you've got a little bit more credibility introducing other people. Do you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good point. Like I said, kind of in the beginning, sometimes there is a little bit of an uneasy feeling. The client's been talking to the sales rep for, months now and building a relationship with them. And then once they actually sign the contract, that's when they get handed off to a project manager that they've never worked with before. So we do really like, as you said, to have our sales reps be the ones that introduce that PM and really build kind of a case study for them to the client as well. You know, hey, this is so-and-so, they're going to be your project manager. They've been here for the last 5 years. They're absolutely top notch as far as our PMs are concerned, expert in email marketing. All of their clients get SEO. They're very familiar with that process. You know, we really like to build up that trust so that they're not just getting handed off to somebody who doesn't understand, like I said, you know, their brand or what their goals are, or what services they're getting. We like to highlight for them and let them know, like, you're in good hands, sometimes, you know, even better hands with the PM than you were with the sales rep. This is a person who can really, you know, cover some ground for you and get things moving along and, you know, hopefully drive more sales for the client.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people are notoriously bad at introducing themselves, I think.
Well, because no one wants to brag.
I know.
You know?
No, I like to brag, but even I'm bad at introducing myself. I'm on a client call and, you know, it'll be the first time I met people and I'm like, hi, I'm Mike. And I'm like, that was so bad. I don't even know why I said that.
Yeah, and no one ever knows what to say about themselves without sounding like, you know, pompous. You don't want to sound like you're just talking about how great you are. And so it always helps to have somebody else vouch for you, especially someone who has that relationship with the client and someone that, you know, has built up a little bit of trust with them. If they trust you enough to sign your contract, then they're probably going to trust your opinion about who's going to be working on their account as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's not a lie either. You know, it's just being better at introducing.
Yeah.
So one thing too, like, you know, we had talked about that internal onboarding and everything we do. And that was something that we developed, you know, almost out of necessity, like years ago. I mean, we were in our infantile stages, you know, we didn't have these elaborate processes and things like that. Those came over time because we learned various things. And, you know, we've seen our retention rates skyrocket by doing something like this because it just, the trust is there. You build the trust from the beginning. Everything's smooth. Everyone knows exactly what they're going to be working on once it gets handed off. And like I said, I was talking to Chris on the last video and he mentioned that a lot of sales teams, there's a disconnect where the sales guy will sell it and then it'll come in the door. The project manager or whoever, the rep, reaches out and there's no introduction. There's no handoff of any sort. There's no, you know, here were the special things that were going on that we talked about. That just has a complete disconnect. And doing something like this, you know, or even a variation of this helps you kind of get around that a little bit.
Yeah. And not only does it help, obviously it helps us to be more organized internally in carrying out the contract, but it just helps to build a good relationship with the client from the beginning as well. It just shows that we've invested our time internally to sitting down and making sure that we all understand what's going on here. We're all on the same page. We're all thinking about strategy for the client. It's just, you never want to start off on the wrong foot. You never want to start off with the client already kind of being like, I don't know you guys. I don't know how I feel about this. You know, the beginning of a contract should be the honeymoon stage, you know, where everything's bliss and everything's great. And then, you know, months in, that's where you start digging into reporting and all the boring analytics and talking about numbers and all of those things like that. So, and like you said, you know, these processes and the way that we handle client onboardings, it wasn't rocket science by any means, putting these things together. It's really just paying attention to common issues that arise and figuring out solutions of how to remedy that moving forward. We saw that we internally had a disconnect between our sales team and our project managers. And so we just put together a handful of processes and steps to follow that make sure that we're seamlessly transitioning that and we're all on the same page from day one.
Yeah, and it really just goes back to listening to your clients. And that's the most valuable source of information you're ever going to get. Because your clients look a hell of a lot like your prospective clients too. So ask them questions, get their feedback, and actually listen. You know, a lot of people will have their answer prepared before they even hear what's being said by the client. Don't do that. Listen to what they're saying, and then take that and actionably make change. And you know, it sounds so simple, but overlook it. I mean, so many people do, and I know I'm probably doing it myself, but you got to listen.
Well, even just listening to your internal teams, you know, if your project management team is reporting common issues or your sales team, a week after handing off the account is continuously getting calls from their client and they're asking them questions that the PM should be fielding, then, clearly there's something wrong in that handoff process there if they're feeling like they need to go back to their sales rep for more information. So I totally agree with you. Reaching out to your clients, doing even just a client satisfaction survey, it can tell you so much about what's going on in your processes, but doing the same thing internally is just as beneficial.
Yeah. Well, and what's great about client services is that you have that direct client contact, and I know not every business has a setup like we do, so I don't know how applicable this is to everyone, but it really helped us when we moved to that project manager model, and maybe it's something to consider for your business as well if you're watching this today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I really appreciate your help. I don't know that I could have done this myself. You always time my thoughts better than I can time in myself.
Thank you.
But thank you all for watching too. Have a good one.